Child stars often enter the entertainment industry with wide-eyed enthusiasm, but as they grow older, many find that Hollywood isn't the glamorous life they once imagined. Whether it's the intense pressure, the struggle to maintain a private life, or simply a desire to pursue other passions, many young actors eventually walk away from the industry. In this video, we'll explore the stories of 15 child stars who chose to step back from the spotlight and focus on their own paths. From career shifts to personal growth, these stars remind us that sometimes leaving Hollywood is the best choice they could make. 1. Mara Wilson. Mara Wilson captured the hearts of audiences as the quirky, intelligent girl in Matilda and Mrs. Doubtfire. Acting seemed like a natural fit for her from a young age, but by the time she reached her teenage years, the industry began to feel stifling. Mara has been open about how the demands of child stardom didn't align with her personal happiness. She struggled with the expectations placed on her as a young actress, especially after the death of her mother during the filming of Matilda. Rather than staying in the limelight, Mara made a conscious decision to step away. After a few more minor roles, she officially retired from film acting in 2000. She transitioned into writing and advocacy, using her voice to discuss mental health issues and the pressures faced by child stars. Today, she's a published author and a prominent voice for change, focusing on creativity and writing instead of performing in front of a camera. 2. Macaulay Culkin. Few child actors have ever achieved the level of fame Macaulay Culkin did in the early 90s. His performance in Home Alone made him a household name at just 10 years old. But with fame came an incredible amount of pressure. Culkin starred in a string of successful films, including My Girl and Richie Rich. But by the time he was 14, he'd had enough. The constant scrutiny, along with family tensions over his earnings, made acting less and less appealing. Culkin took a significant break from acting in 1994, leading a quieter life away from the industry. In interviews, he's reflected on how challenging it was to balance childhood with stardom. While he's made occasional appearances in recent years, most notably in the comedy-drama series The Righteous Gemstones, and as a guest star in American Horror Story, Culkin has largely stayed out of the spotlight, living a far less public life. He now enjoys his passions like music and running a comedy podcast, having found a balance between fame and normalcy. 3. Amanda Bynes. Amanda Bynes was a comedic force on Nickelodeon in the late 90s and early 2000s, with standout performances in All That and The Amanda Show. Her timing and charisma made her one of the network's most beloved stars, and she transitioned smoothly into films like She's the Man and What a Girl Wants. However, the pressures of fame and the toll it took on her mental health began to surface in her early 20s. After a string of highly publicized incidents and legal issues, Bynes stepped away from acting in 2010. She later revealed that the intense scrutiny and expectations of Hollywood had led to struggles with addiction and mental health issues. In the years since, Bynes has sought treatment, focusing on her personal well-being and finding peace away from the limelight. She's expressed interest in returning to fashion, having studied at the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising. But she remains largely out of public view, focusing on healing and rebuilding her life. 4. Rick Moranis. While Rick Moranis wasn't technically a child star, his work in family-friendly classics like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and Ghostbusters made him a household name for kids and adults alike. In the mid-90s, however, Moranis faced a devastating personal loss: the death of his wife from cancer. Left to raise his 2 children as a single parent, Moranis made the brave decision to step away from Hollywood altogether. Rather than juggling acting and parenthood, he chose to prioritize his family and focus on raising his kids out of the public eye. Moranis turned down numerous opportunities to return to the big screen, instead taking on only small voiceover roles when his children were older. Today, he's largely retired, content with the decision to leave acting behind for the sake of his family, though fans were excited to hear about his recent, albeit brief, return in a commercial. 5. Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen. From the time they were babies, Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen were in front of the camera, sharing the role of Michelle Tanner on Full House. As they grew older, the twins built an entertainment empire, producing direct-to-video movies, starring in TV shows, and becoming fashion icons for young girls. They had a string of successful films, including Passport to Paris and New York Minute. But by their early 20s, the pressure of balancing their empire with their personal lives started to take a toll. The Olsen twins decided to step away from acting in the mid-2000s. Instead of continuing to chase Hollywood stardom, they focused on their passion for fashion, founding the luxury brand The Row. Both Mary-Kate and Ashley have made it clear that they don't miss their acting careers and prefer the privacy that comes with working behind the scenes. Today, they remain influential figures in the fashion world, but have largely left their Hollywood fame behind. 6. Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Jonathan Taylor Thomas, or JTT as fans affectionately called him, was one of the most popular teen idols of the 1990s. Best known for his role as Randy Taylor on Home Improvement and voicing young Simba in The Lion King, JTT was a mainstay in Hollywood during his teenage years. However, in 1998, at the height of his popularity, Thomas made the surprising decision to leave Home Improvement and focus on his education. Thomas attended Harvard University and later Columbia University, choosing to pursue academic interests instead of remaining in the public eye. Although he did return to acting for brief cameos in the 2010s, he never fully re-entered the industry. He's since maintained a relatively low profile, preferring the intellectual pursuits of his education to the fame and pressures of Hollywood. 7. Shirley Temple. Shirley Temple was perhaps the first true child star in Hollywood history. In the 1930s, she became an icon with her cheerful demeanor, curly ringlets, and ability to sing and dance. By the age of 10, Temple had already starred in more than 20 films and was a national treasure during the Great Depression. However, as she grew older, her appeal as a child star waned, and Temple found it difficult to transition into more mature roles. By the time she was 22, Temple retired from acting completely. Instead of continuing in Hollywood, she pursued a career in public service, eventually becoming a U.S. ambassador to Ghana and Czechoslovakia. Temple's post-Hollywood career was as distinguished as her time on screen, proving that there's life beyond the fame of being a child star. 8. Frankie Muniz. Frankie Muniz was one of the most recognizable child stars of the early 2000s, thanks to his role as the titular character in Malcolm in the Middle. His comedic timing and ability to anchor a successful sitcom made him a breakout star. However, as his career progressed, Muniz found himself drawn to other interests, most notably professional race car driving. In 2008, Muniz made the decision to step away from acting to focus on racing. He participated in the Atlantic Championship and pursued a career in motorsports for several years. In addition to racing, Muniz has explored music, joining a rock band as a drummer. Though he's made occasional appearances in the media, his focus remains on his passions outside of acting, content with the quieter life he's built. 9. Jake Lloyd. Jake Lloyd's story is one of the darker sides of child stardom. At just 8 years old, Lloyd was cast as Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars. Episode 1, The The Phantom Menace. While the role should have been a dream come true for any young actor, the intense criticism of the film and of his performance turned his experience into a nightmare. Lloyd has spoken about how school bullying and the pressures of fame after Star Wars led him to quit acting for good. He described his time in the spotlight as hellish and has since faced personal struggles, including legal troubles and mental health issues. Lloyd's story is a cautionary tale about the challenges of being thrust into fame at such a young age, especially in such a high-profile franchise. 10. Danny Lloyd. Unlike many other child stars, Danny Lloyd only had one significant role in Hollywood, but it was a memorable one, playing Danny Torrance in Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. His eerie performance as the psychic child haunted by the hotel's malevolent forces became an iconic part of horror film history. However, after filming The Shining, Lloyd's acting career was short-lived. By his teenage years, Lloyd had retired from acting altogether, choosing instead to pursue a career as a teacher. Today, he teaches biology at a community college and has expressed happiness with his decision to live a quieter life. While The Shining remains a significant part of his past, Lloyd has moved on, finding fulfillment in education and family. 11. Taran Noah Smith. Taran Noah Smith played Mark Taylor, the youngest son on Home Improvement. The show was a massive success, and Smith spent his formative years in front of the camera. However, once the series ended, Smith quickly left the industry. He later revealed that he had little interest in pursuing acting further, instead seeking out alternative lifestyles that aligned with his values. Smith went on to start a vegan food company with his then-wife and became involved in environmental activism. He's maintained a very low profile in the years since, choosing to live a life focused on sustainability and social causes rather than the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. 12. Janette Mccartie. Janette Mccartie rose to fame as Sam Puckett on Nickelodeon's iCarly, later reprising her role on Sam and Cat. Behind the scenes, though, McCartie was grappling with the pressures of fame, her mother's overbearing control, and struggles with eating disorders. In her memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died, she detailed the challenges of growing up in the spotlight and the ways in which Hollywood had become a toxic environment for her. McCartie ultimately made the decision to leave acting behind and pursue other creative outlets. She has since turned to writing, directing, and podcasting, focusing on projects that feel more authentic to her and her experiences. McCartie's departure from Hollywood allowed her to regain control over her life, and she's become a powerful advocate for mental health awareness. 13. Peter Ostram. Peter Ostram's turn as Charlie Bucket in the beloved 1971 classic Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory remains his only film credit. Despite being part of such an iconic movie, Ostram chose not to continue acting after his childhood role. Instead, he followed a very different path, becoming a veterinarian. Today, Ostram works with animals in upstate New York. A career, he said, brings him far more satisfaction than Hollywood ever did. Though fans occasionally recognize him for his role as Charlie, Ostram is happy living a quiet life and often reflects positively on his decision to leave acting behind. 14. Angus T Jones. As the half-man in 2.5 Men, Angus T Jones became one of the highest-paid child actors in television history. However, as he grew older, Jones began to question the direction of the show and the values it promoted. In 2012, he publicly criticized the sitcom, referring to it as filth, and encouraging viewers to stop watching. Shortly after, he left the show entirely. Since stepping away from acting, Jones has focused on his faith and education. While he's made a few public appearances in recent years, he has largely avoided the spotlight, choosing a more introspective life. Jonas's departure from Hollywood was driven by personal growth and a desire to align his career with his values. 15. Lisa Jackob. Lisa Jackob's role as Lydia Hillard in Mrs. Doubtfire gave her a prominent place in 90s pop culture. She also appeared in Independence Day and other films, but by her early 20s, Jackob decided to leave acting for good. In her memoir, You Look Like That Girl, she details how the pressures of Hollywood began to weigh on her, and how stepping away was a move toward finding herself. Since leaving the industry, Jackob has pursued writing, becoming a mental health advocate, and a yoga instructor. She's spoken openly about her struggles with anxiety and depression, and now focuses on helping others through mindfulness and self-care. Jackob has built a fulfilling life outside of Hollywood, channeling her energy into healing and personal growth. These 15 child stars each found their reasons to walk away from Hollywood. Whether it was for personal growth, family, or simply the desire for a more private life, their stories highlight the reality that fame isn't always as glamorous as it seems. Many of them have found more fulfillment in quieter pursuits, and their decisions remind us that walking away can sometimes lead to the most meaningful chapters in life.